Welcome to the best show on Friday nights.
Fumble a bag, now I when I fumble a bag. Fumble a bag, now I when I fumble a bag. Act like you know how this goes.
Your hosts for the evening: Molly Dorst, Jim Beard, and Lefty the Video Jedi.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Friday Night Live, our interview series, which is since obviously we interviewed the absolutely amazing Marley Jacks, we have had a bunch of people reach out and say, oh my God, I would love to tell my story. And Robert was one of the very first ones to do so. And I didn't know all of Robert's story. I've known Robert for a good stretch now, and I didn't know all of the craziness that lies within the success of this man. So Robert J. Moore, for those of you that don't know, he is a celebrated author. He has a Guinness Book of World Records record for, I believe it's the most authors consecutively on one publication. Is that correct?
Yep.
He has received numerous awards, including one just this week, which we're going to get into a little bit. I would love to hear his feedback on that, because I mean, this guy gets more awards than people go through like socks. Like, he's constantly being awarded, and his story is incredible. So I am so pumped to get into this with you, Robert, and I hope for the audience members out there that you guys are excited too, because this is going to be a good one. You're going to want to pay attention, because this man has gone from, you talk about from the dirt to the clouds. He has done this in spades. So, Robert, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jim. It's been a long time since we know each other, man. We have.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I can't believe we never dug in.
You never dug in, no. I guess I don't know. I'm very open with my past.
I love it, man. But you're someone that I've respected for a long time. I used to do, obviously, X's Nose Game Show.
I
And that's
was
when
there.
I got introduced to Robert through the absolutely amazing Heather Murphy, who was literally the one that held that entire show together. So another shout out to Heather Murphy out there.
That was fun, that game.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's what started me on this path, so I got a lot of love for that time period and for all the people that were a part of that. And you were one of them. And so I met you through that, and I met you through consecutively after that through the fundraisers you were doing, the outreach you were doing, obviously the publications you were putting out in the world. This one's a kicker. Robert, how many books have you authored?
I'm on my 201.
I want you to say it one more time for the kids in the back.
201 books I published as a
That's insane. Some of you were sitting out there right now and you're going, I'm still thinking about writing my first one. He's on 201.
That's my last book I'm doing ever too.
Man.
Last book I'm doing right now, I'm doing a collaboration. I got some powerful people. Les Brown's actually done the forward for it.
Yes, fantastic.
Serious people getting involved in this book. And it's going 15 different languages. It's going on the Times Square bulletin board there. It's going in an audio book, and I'm kicking ass with it. And my last book actually went there, Resilience. That actually went there. The one you have on the picture there. Yeah, that went big time, and it's actually, I'm doing a movie right now with that book. And
yeah, that is one of the last things I wanted to get into, was that, talking about the future of your story and how that's going to have future life to further inspire others. I'm so excited, man. So for those of you out there that have no idea who I'm talking to right now, because you've been living in a cabin in the woods for some reason, Robert, tell us about your beginnings.
My beginning,
high level, and we'll kind of bring that up to when you got out.
Let's put it this way. I was 13 years old. I didn't feel like I fit in all the time with my parents and everybody else around. I just didn't feel like I fit in the family. I was raised by a stepmom. She was very angry towards me. She hit me with hammers, hit me with and stabbed me with forks. I'm eating too fast. My dad was with the boys, the bikers, and he basically had all the people come over. There was no colors, no nothing like that. He was independent, right? He had a 45 Indian suicide shift at the time, and he was like, "Don't bring no colors in my house. You guys are welcome to my house for weekend. You know, have some wobbly pops or whatever it may be, and don't go from there. Like, no problem." So what basically happened from there is I kept seeing everybody enjoying themselves, laughing, he and I, and I'm depressed. I'm like, what the hell is I laughing at? So then my dad says, go downstairs, grab a round of beers for the boys. Now, I was Labatt's 50 at the time and OV, the Stubbies. So on the way downstairs, I said, okay, well, why they laugh? And I couldn't understand. So I grabbed one and I guzzled one down. The son of a bitch tastes like sandpaper, but I didn't care. You know what I mean? I drank the whole thing, but on the way up the stairs with the tray, I let the biggest belch go. And it was like an overwhelming feeling come after that. It was like, wow, starting to feel like I could speak. I could be boisterous. I could start telling people what I think. And that's where it really started. I never knew these guys were patch members or anything like that. Never knew anything about it. You know, like they weren't very deep into it or anything. So they were just drinkers, basically, with my dad. So they went from there, and then I ended up getting in a lot of trouble because I was not getting the void at home. So I joined gangs. I joined organized crime. You know, I felt like I fit in there, man. People are paying attention to me. You know, except for when I went to jail, then all of a sudden you're on your own, man. You got to do your own time.
It's really interesting. Let me dig into that just a little bit. So you said, because I'm sure people can relate, right? So there are definitely people that are like, I don't feel like I'm getting the attention I need, the loving I need, the family structure I need, or the education I need, but not everyone goes that road. So I would love to hear from you. What do you think made that option so appealing?
The fact that I think I seen people fear them. I've seen people fear these people, and I wanted to be respected. And I guess the only way I could be respected was the fact of, you know, hey, when I spoke, they kind of listened. As before they would speak, they would be like, who the hell are you? I mean, who cares what you say? I mean, you know what I mean? You were nobody. And then all of a sudden, when you're hanging with these certain people that are known for going in the alleyway and duking it out,
right?
You kind of get a little bit more respect, and it's like credibility. A whole different way, though.
Yeah, it's a very different way. For sure.
But I mean, I ended up doing 17 years in out of prison. I did attempted murders, armed robberies. You know, I did 36 assaults. Just assaults alone was 36. You know, because I wanted to be the man that was going out doing all the collecting, doing all the kicking indoors, put the shotgun in people's mouths, breaking their legs, whatever I had to do.
Man,
you know, it was. I look at it today and it kind of disgustes me, but I had to go through that. And at the same time, my dad, his best friend's a Crown attorney, which I didn't know was one of the boys that kept coming to the house all these years. He was a Crown attorney of like basically Ontario. And so if he's the Crown attorney of Ontario, every time I went to jail, he'd say to my dad, your son's back in jail. At the same time, my uncle, my mom's side, was one of the jail guards. So every time he'd come in, he'd just look at me, like lock the door, just turn the key like that, didn't know what to say. You know, I'd start riots in jail. It didn't bother me none. If things were just going, hey, we're bored, let's do something. Let's start a riot. So I did.
Man,
Got 30 days in the
I know
hole.
I know you could never show it, but were there times where you were really intensely scared during that time?
I even listen to a Harley go by right now and I get a little nervous because you never know what's going to happen, right? Like, honestly, it's like PTSD. I mean, to be honest with you, yeah, going in jail, doing the time I was doing, it's like when you get moved from one range to the other and you're not comfortable with the surrounding and who's going to be who, it's a lot like gladiator school. Who's tougher in this room, right?
Yeah.
We have to fight everybody in the room in order to figure out who's toughest, who can we respect. So it became I couldn't do the time now. I'll be honest with you. I couldn't do the time now. I mean, there's too many people just getting shanked, too many people getting beat up, like 4 or 5 people in one stop. My brother Jay, he just got out not long ago. And he did 4.5 years for, crystal meth. And he said he barely made it through himself, and he's a fighter.
So coming out of that and living that lifestyle, how in the world did you get to where you are now? More specifically, I think our audience will want to know is, how do you go from getting out of prison, and this is what you know, right? This is your skill set is in this, and this is what you do really well, and you want to get out of that. What is your first step out of prison?
Well, and first, when you look at the situation, I was a drug addict, alcoholic all the way through. I mean, I'm not going to lie about that. I was a drug addict, alcoholic. I'm going on 18 years clean and sober now. But at the same time, the fact of getting out of it, I think I skidded across bottom long enough. Like just going across, it wasn't me. You know what I mean? I'm looking at these people walking around and they got busted up faces, legs, or whatever they got, and these people are praising me. I'm thinking, what kind of bullshit is this? You know what I mean? Like it just, I'm losing my family. I've lost my family. I wasn't allowed. There's certain streets that if I walk down the streets, you could see them all shutting the door and locking it. Because they were afraid I'm either going to rob them, they're afraid I'm going to come after them, or something stupid was going to happen and piss me off. I was a very, very, very angry person, though, mind you, because I didn't like me. When I didn't like me, I took it out on you, which is everybody else.
Right.
So when I got clean and sober at the age of 31 years old, by the way, in 10 days, I'll be 51. So it's going to go on 20 years. I'm clean and sober.
Congratulations. Truly, man. Yeah. That's absolutely amazing.
I'm looking around, and I could never, and I mean never, like I lived on the streets 7 years, and sometimes the only way I could get a drink is late at night at the blue bins and poured all the drinks that I found at the blue bin from the bar and then take a couple shots like that.
Oh man,
it was bad, man. When I was living on the streets, I did pot machines, broke them open. It's $200-300 in there, keep me going for a couple hours. I'd literally rob drug dealers. They had guns to my head. And you know what it's like when you're in Detroit, basically. It's the same thing out here. You got guns to your head, and they're telling you, okay, if you take my dope, I'm shooting you. I said, well, you might as well end it because I'm taking your dope. They never shot me. I'm still here. Now,
thankfully, Detroit has gotten much better. Detroit has gotten much better, and thankfully that you obviously are here today to be able to talk to us and have this interview, because, man, like I said, your story is intense.
Well, I tell you, there's a lot of it that people don't know of, or people don't understand. But when you look at the situation, here's the thing. I might have done a lot of evil things back then, but I do a lot of things today to try and make up for those evil things. I could never be forgiven for what I've done from a lot of people. I've been in car accidents. I've seen people die in my hands. I've seen some of the worst things happen to people, and a lot of things I don't talk about for a reason. I never give names out. That's one thing I don't do. Sure. I don't tell you who was with me, but I'll tell you people were. Another thing that really started slowing me up and making me realize what was going on was December 17th. I was in a crack house in Hamilton, Ontario, in Canada here. And it was right off Wellington Street. And I'm looking at the TV and I'm stoned out of my mind, and next thing I'm looking on TV, I said, man, someone's going to have a shitty Christmas, because all you can see is they mentioned someone died. Next thing you know, we had a bang on the door a half hour later. As soon as I heard that bang, I got my boots on, and I ran right out the window. It was kind of open, so I opened it, ran right out the window, got out of there quick, and they grabbed me. I had long hair down to here. They grabbed me by the hair. They said, Robert, we don't want you for anything like that right now. You're okay. You're not going to jail. And they told me that person that died on the TV I was watching was my brother.
Wow.
Yeah. So I had to, that was 2001. So I had to call and get that all straightened out, go to my aunt's, and she says, just get upstairs, go to bed. Don't worry about having a shower. Obviously you've been up for days. Get up there and shower. Boom. So that funeral is done. So now when I'm clean and sober years later, 2015, I get another call, but the thing is, here's the weirdest thing. I was actually a drug and alcohol counselor at this time. I've already been certified. I went and got my social service worker diploma, my addictions degree, my BA in psychology, my master's in counseling psychology, my harm reduction, mental health crisis, and a bunch of awards to go with it. So I'm jumping ahead a bit for a reason. My other brother, 2015, died of an overdose. All right. And I got a call when I was working, teaching these people that things can go out there that make you want to go back using. That phone call almost made me go back using. That was number 2. I got the Guinness World Record behind me. 10 days after that, my third brother OD'd. So I lost 3 brothers.
Wow, man.
Alcohol. Yeah. And that's the truth, man. Straight goods. My other brother did 4.5 years in prison for meth, and it's like, I don't need that lifestyle.
Right. And you said he just recently got out. Is that right?
He recently got out, but he's back on the drugs.
Oh, I'm so sorry, man.
Now, I'll tell you, though, when I decided back then, almost 19 years ago, an incident happened when I said, enough is enough. We blew like $10,000 overnight. That was 4 of us on drugs, alcohol, and everything. 10 grand overnight. And it was easy. We just made more money if we needed it, right? Well, I decided I've had enough. I can't do this no more, right? And there were strict orders. If I was to leave, that I had to leave in a box. Straightforward, because I know too much, right?
Sure.
Well, what happened was the guy was my best friend for almost 6 years.
Well, just to be clear for anyone watching, when you're saying for me to leave in a box, you mean from the gang?
Yeah. From associations I was with.
Right.
Yeah, from the organized crime, basically.
Yeah.
Right. Organized, and it's a very serious situation. So the guy I was actually best friends with, and we used to play fight and everything else. I mean, like, I don't know about play fight. We kind of hit each other, but nothing serious. All of a sudden, I look up, and there's this great big blade that's gone in me. So, whoa. So it was a 12-inch blade that went right through me, right into my liver. I got a big mark like this all the way down. It's 44 staples I had in me. I ran down the street, but I put this thumb. I went wham! I rammed it right in me to stop the bleeding, so they couldn't tell where the bleeding was coming from and what house I came from, to save them, because I was solid. Right? I'm still solid. I didn't want anybody knowing where I came from, so I went down and met up with this guy delivering pizza. I said, "Get me to the hospital." And he's like, sees all this blood on me. He says, "Get out of my car. You're going to wreck my car. You're going to make it full of blood." He says, "I got to work for a living." So he dropped me off the ambulance, and down there, he saw an ambulance down the street. He got me into an ambulance, and away I went. So, I mean, yeah. And then it still didn't stop me from using drugs or alcohol, because when I went to see the doctor and started feeling better, the packing that I had to put in there, I told the nurse, "Go away." She kept looking around at all the paraphernalia. I said, "Just go away. Don't bother coming back. I'll do it myself." Right? I didn't realize that your liver was purple. You know, you can see it in the mirror, right? So I'm stuffing all this stuff in there, bandaging it up. And the doctor says, "So I hear you kicked her out." I said, "She was useless. All she wanted to do was talk about bullshit." He just shakes his head. He just shakes his head. And then when he went the other way, I got some freezing. And I got the clippers I use to take out the staples. He said, "I'll be back in a couple of weeks." I said, "You won't see me again." He says, "Really?" He says, "You got to get those out." I said, "Don't worry about it. You won't see me again." So I went and got high when he told me. He said, roughly around the time you can let go. And I went and got high, and I said, "Someone hold me down and just let's pull them out." That's what we did. 44 staples. And they were big staples too, like the big ones.
My goodness, man. So coming out of all of that violence, and not just violence, but rewarded violence, with either with colleagues and friends, or rewarded with obviously financial gain, or the escapism of it, or whatever it may have been. It seems like it was a lot of rewards. So at what point did it stop being the reward?
When I started feeling a pit in my stomach, and I knew I was scraping across the bottom of the earth, by bottom of my time. I had one foot in the grave. The other foot was just hanging loosely on top part of it. And my emotions, I mean, I become emotionally numb at the time. But it had this gut, like this raunchy gut feeling that something had to change. I don't know why. It was like epiphany. I had this epiphany. You know, I'm walking down the street, and this is a true story. I don't tell this to very often to people because I think I should be in the nut house for this part. Walking down the street, I asked someone to borrow their phone because obviously I didn't have a phone. I couldn't afford one. I was too much of a drunk.
Right.
I asked them to use their phone, and I got a hold of the detox. I said, "Do you mind if I come in?" I said, "Well, this is going to be no different than 100 times you've already been here." And I said, "I understand what you're saying, but listen, I need to come in." Okay, go to the hospital first. Make sure you get checked out because you go through some bad DTs, and we don't want you dying. So they had to give me Valium to get me off it, right? So by the time I was going in there, I was talking to myself like I am right now, just talking, right? And then all of a sudden, it was like this little girl I passed by. I seen a little girl, and she goes, "Oh, he needs help." I didn't clue into that second she said that, but I clued in like a second or two later. It's like, well, okay. So I turned around and I went to the lady. I said, "Ma'am," I said, "Where'd the little girl go?" She goes, "What little girl? I don't have a little girl." I said, "Whoa." Yeah, okay. I said, "Thanks very much." I said, "Yeah." I decided to go right into the hospital. I've never told that story to anybody there or anybody else too many times. I think I told that story maybe twice or three times in my life. And
I
the
imagine
reason
that rocked you pretty good.
it shook me. It shook me. Like, what was that all about? Like, I don't understand. I didn't believe in ghosts or anything. I didn't believe in anything like that. And obviously I wasn't with God at the time. And I didn't believe in angels. I didn't know what was going on. But to this day, it still puzzles me that I seen this little girl and she said, "This guy needs help." So when I finally got in and I got taken to the detox, they said, "We've been waiting for you." They kept me, believe it or not, they usually only keep people 7 days.
Okay.
When they gave me the opportunity, they said, "Listen, we're tired of seeing you go through this. How serious are you about this? Enough is enough. Because if you're wasting space, we're kicking you out." I said, "Listen."
That in itself says a lot. Yeah.
Right there. You know what I mean? I said, "Listen, I'm here. I want to do this." They go, "What changed this time?" I said, "I don't know. I got a feeling I need to be here. I got a feeling I need to get myself help. I need to get into a treatment center." And they said, "Treatment center? Now we're talking the right path." They said, "But we don't believe you." I said, "Why don't you believe me?" They said, "You know how many times you cried wolf just to get in here, stay a week, eat. You're great after a week, and you have a nice shower, good sleeps, and you go right back to where you were at."
Yeah.
So I actually did do it. I actually got the help I needed. And guess what? Still here today.
So that was the last one.
The last drink. I remember my last drink big time. I remember my last
Man.
drink. I was actually in a bush. I had a 2 for a beer. I was in a bush. I could afford a 2 for, but I couldn't afford the cigarettes or a meal. I always told people, "Listen, don't give me a $2 sandwich to ruin this big drunk." I said, that'll ruin me. I said, that'll ruin everything I put into this case of beer.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or I tell people, "Listen, you know, I don't have enough blood in my alcohol system."
Right.
So
So you were in a bush.
I used to drink in the bush all the time. I never drank it in bars, or I never drank it. Just always in the bush and whatever it may be. Have campfires out there. You have your own rolls. Drink in the bush.
Okay.
I mean, I drank in certain houses and club
Sure.
places or whatever it may be. But yeah, I mean, I escaped from jail the one time because I just wanted to go party one day.
Oh my
I
God.
literally escaped from jail.
What?
And I think I only had 2 weeks left. I saw an opportunity. I took off, and
With 2 weeks left.
2 weeks left.
Oh man.
Went and got
How much more
hammered.
time you got added on?
Actually, I only got one day. I had the lawyer I dealt with Frank Pizzamente out of Toronto. This guy dealt with some pretty high end people on, you know, organized crime and mafia bikers and all that kind of people. He dealt with some pretty serious people. While I think one or two of them actually phoned in and said, "Give this guy a break." You know, hey, you know what I mean?
It's amazing.
He actually gave me 1 day. And so I went from there. But the way they arrested me was unbelievable. I was around the campfire, and then they just started flying in out of the sky and everything. all these big guns and everything on me. I said, geez, I'm not a mass murderer. I just took out from jail. I would have came back eventually.
Right. But I mean, that's the mentality you were in, right? Is like, yeah, I'll go back. But
Oh, I do.
before that, I'm gonna do some things. But you intended to go back in that
Yeah,
mindset, right?
yeah.
That's
It was
incredible.
pretty. There was no thought of doing healthy things. No thought.
Mhm.
I mean,
Quick shout out to our audience, Junaid Ahmed. We got Olga. I hope I'm saying this right. Valdepina, or maybe it's Valdepina. I don't
she's one of my students.
know. Awesome. Welcome, obviously. And we have a bunch of people. I can only see Facebook user, but
Yeah,
just so you
same
guys
here.
know, welcome here. We really appreciate all of you guys joining us here.
Great
So
to see Robert J. Moore, the guy who got me to be a published author.
yeah, that's Junaid Ahmed there.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic, man. So coming from this, which I think everyone could agree is a low, okay? How do you go from that to you've made the change, you're sober, you're clean, you're coming out into the world. What do I do next?
Well, you got a basket full of emotions right now at the time, like when you're starting to get clean and sober, because you got to remember, I drank or I used to suppress those emotions I didn't like. So
Sure.
now you got to go through a variety of ways to get rid of those emotions and digest them properly. So it must have been about, I did the NA way, AA way, I did the California 4-step way, 400, 300 questions, and I did a lot of talking with sponsors and that when I was going to meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And then I talked, and every 2 weeks I'd go see a counselor to debrief. Even though I was going through school to actually become a counselor, I needed to debrief because now I'll be honest with you, I didn't go through school with all that education I got to impress anybody out here or to actually work with anybody. I did it to impress me because I was never finished anything except for a beer. Seriously, I never finished anything except for the bottom of a beer. But at the same time, I wanted to find out why was I being that asshole I was? Why was that behavior continuing? So I wanted to learn why all that psychology was going through. So I learned it all. And then once I got to learn it all, I was able to utilize that on other people. I was a registered counselor for 12 years, drugs and alcohol, a therapist in Ontario for 15 years. But I felt that wasn't good enough. I wanted to utilize more. So now I utilize all of it. That's why you don't see credentials on the wall except for the awards, right? I utilize that now to help empower other businesses to grow.
So what your first steps to reach out to get this education? So I know, like, I just estimating what the questions are going to be, right? So because usually we get a lot of questions.
The first thing I did was got clean sober.
First thing you did there.
Yeah.
And then the next thing when you said, I wanted to learn. So if you're coming out of prison and you don't have much money, how did you approach that?
Well, I mean, the government.
And where did you go?
In Canada, we have programs here that pay for you. I went and got my grade 12. I went and got my grade 12. And I was sitting there with people 15, 20 years junior to my age. Mm-hmm. It was like they're all talking about parties. And I'm like 3 months clean and sober. And I just want to go over there and say, okay, well, let me backhand this guy and slam him down. I'm here to educate and you're here to party.
That had to be hard.
It was hard, but you know what? I had to realize why I was there. Was I there for them, to impress them, to actually, I call it war stories. Do I engage in their war stories, engage in the BS that they're saying because it may not be true? Like I know the stories. I put stories out there in the past that weren't true, obviously, but it got their attention, and I don't do that today. I'm just letting you know these aren't made up stories today. These are straight good stories. Mm-hmm. These are the real McCoy stories. And the reason why is I think I got enough stories that I don't have to become, all these other bullshit stories.
Sure.
I love my own.
And so now going from that, being a counselor, what makes you decide to go to the steps that you've now taken, that now you're known for? How do you transition from counselor to now consultant, business, speaker? What is the entryway into that world?
Well, I was sitting there, years ago, like I was 2 years clean sober at the time. I was living up north, and then next thing you know, I said to myself, I got to do something, right? I was still in school. I said, I want to become something. So during the school years I was going to, I really put myself out there trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And that's why I opened my own business up. And then I never worked for anybody in the last 18 years at all. Not at all. I mean, I worked for myself. I said, you know what? I'm putting my foot down. I'm not going to work for another person because I'll be honest with you, I don't like being told what to do. I don't like it. I don't like when someone says, no, you're doing it wrong, or they get cocky or something. Like even my coach, one of my coach right now, he's one of the top people in the world. Mm-hmm. You know, he's a top strategist in the world. He went from $1.53 to 200 million. You know, that's insane. That's a nice chase right there. So needless to say, you know, it went through a lot of ups and downs to get to where I am today. But you know what? I'll tell you right now, even that Eric Thomas, I had coached by him, and him and I shared stage together. The hip hop preacher. He says, listen, here's what we have to do. You have to get over that hump of those emotions, because if you don't do that, it's going to be pretty foggy all the way through your life. So you got to learn how to deal with emotions, got to learn how to deal with how to digest them properly. So instead of having them negative, put a positive towards them. Mm-hmm. So I started doing that, started feeling better about myself, but I started getting complacent at the same time, and I need a few knockdowns, right? So I mean, Les Brown, a bunch of them, they all gave me a couple of knockdowns when I was going through things. Yeah. And they said, you know what, you're no better than anybody here. So listen, get off your high horse and let's go. So it's like, oh, wow, here we go. Like, you know, my instant reaction as a knee jerker is to tell them where to go and yell at them and tell them to go up, you know, piss off kind of thing. But I didn't. I mean, because I was the type of person I was back then. I didn't care. I told you off.
We got a question from the audience. They said, what do you do? What do you tell yourself to keep yourself going when you're feeling overloaded?
You know, here's the thing. I don't get overwhelmed. I do and I don't. Lately I have, because I got an event coming up. I got the 201 book. I'm training 4 other people to do their own publishing businesses. I got a whack load of students right now. A few of them I have let go. But I just go and spend time with my 5-year-old. That's beautiful, man. It's a beautiful thing.
I love that.
You know,
I love that so much.
Every night, like after here, I'll go make myself a vitamin C juice, right? And him and I'll sit down together. He'll watch his little phone or the TV, and I'll sit on my tablet, and you know, I'll still work, but I'm there with him. So it makes me relaxed. Makes me relaxed and
puts things in perspective.
Yeah.
I love that so much, man. Awesome. So back to your story, obviously. So who was your first like mentor?
Oh, you're gonna love this. I went to an event one time and I thought, okay, well, in my mind, I said, okay, well, I got to get a client. I've never had a client before, you know, like at that time. And it's like, okay, well, what do I do? I just changed my business around. 15, 20 different names I had. They just weren't catching up with me. So Magnetic Entrepreneur stuck with me one night because of my dad. He called it somehow or another. He called it around the campfire, and he says every time he talks to someone, he's like a magnet. Everybody wants to talk to him. And I didn't know anybody. You know, like I was getting gas one day, and the guy was helping me out, talking to me, and he just wanted to unload on me and everything else. So here's the funny thing about the whole thing. When you're unexpecting something to happen and you're going the right way, just keep trudging it. Just keep going through it. Just keep making sure that you're doing each individual step that you need to take, because eventually you will get there. And be careful what you ask for, because you might get it. That's scary shit when you do it.
That's so true.
I said I want to win the Guinness World Record one time. I had COVID. I was throwing up blood. I couldn't hardly breathe. I was supposed to be in the hospital. I said, no, I promised everybody here that we're going to win it, and I'll be here to make sure we do. Mm-hmm. I had to hire an MC right then and there. I couldn't do it. I couldn't even hardly talk. I was throwing up blood like all over the place. And I said, nope, I'm telling you, man, I'm loyal. I got to do this. I was always brought up, if your word's going to do it, you got to do it, man. You got to do that word.
Mm-hmm. So another interesting thing you brought up that I'd like to dig into a little bit is you said that your first business was not your last business. And
Yeah.
so I always find this very interesting because I think that we put a lot of pressure on ourselves as entrepreneurs that the first one has to be the one. And so what was your first business?
My first business, I mean, it is just, I can't even remember my very first one. It was just,
Really? You
yeah,
can't
my
remember your
very,
very
very,
first
very,
one?
I mean, I did lemonade as a tiny kid, but I mean,
No,
that,
like after the prison, that
yeah,
whole section of your life. Like, what was your first business?
I think I was trying to get people back in the society or something like that. I mean,
Okay,
when you become clean and sober, you want to save the world.
of course.
I mean, you're on this verge of, okay, I want to save the world, and then you have to get knocked down a million times to get back up. It's not how many times you fall, guys. I'm telling you, I don't care what you say. It's not how many times you fall. It's how many times you can get back up and keep on going. That's
Yeah.
exactly how it works. But to get back to the other question first, I was at the event. The guy beside me smelled like pig shit. He smelled like pig shit. I mean, it stunk. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, the guy's asking me all these questions, and then I got my first client here, I think. So
Oh,
finally,
okay.
the event's over. Finally, the event's over, and he says, "Hey, you got Facebook?" I said, "Yeah, I got Facebook. Here it is, right here." So he added me right then and there, and I didn't look at it right there. And then finally, I got home. 2 days later, he contacted me, and I got to look at it, and I said, "This the same guy, right?" And then I asked him, I said, "You the same guy that was beside me?" He goes, "Yes." He goes, "Did you judge me?" And I said, "I had to." I said, "You smell like pig shit." And he's like, he looks at me, he starts laughing. He goes, "Listen, I was helping a guy move that actually was on the farm. So yeah, it smelled like pig shit. But really, I'm the operations manager of Thick and Grow Rich. How do you like me now? Let me introduce myself again." I said, "Jesus, I don't think I'm gonna be having you as a client. How would you like to coach me?" I said.
So he was your first mentor.
He was my first mentor.
Fantastic. And so,
Now the thing is, I only had $2,100 in my bank. I had bills to come. I had rent to pay. I had bills to come up, and it's like he wanted 1,400 of it right then and there. Like, I mean, the bottomless pit. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
Oh yeah,
I did it anyway.
I have lived that numerous times actually.
I did it anyways. 2 weeks after that, I made 17,000. I don't know how I did it, but I made $17,000 2 weeks after that. He taught me routines, how to make things happen. 2 weeks after that was 53,000.
And so, what were you selling at that point?
I was just coaching, not knowing what I was doing. I'll be honest with you.
So, what was your subject matter you were coaching on? So, reacclimating to life after
just basically trying to help people get over their emotions, basically, grieving and all that stuff, and especially not allowing it to go into the entrepreneur world, because so many people bring their emotions to the business world and they lose track where they are. Now I look at it like, okay, here's the best way to do it. When I'm coaching someone, I can read people like a book, not a problem. It's I look at them and I can see their actions, their facial expressions, their body language, all that. But the thing is, people forget their foundation of their whole business. I mean, that's huge. Your foundation of your business is huge. People don't understand to actually look at your foundation and structure of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, you kind of got to do that temperature check, right? Just make sure you're always in alignment.
I've worked with some millionaires, multimillionaires that didn't know their structure. They were losing money. There was a leak somewhere, like it was like just pouring out somewhere. And I told them, I said, "How much do you really understand your business?" I literally fired like 5 years ago, I think it was, fired everybody in my team. I said, "Look, guys, I'm gonna let you go. I want to find out where there's a leak in my business." Wow. I want to find, so I went and hired this person, that person, this person. Like, I want to do marketing. I want to do, I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to do this. Every part of my business had a section to it, and I learned it. I paid a lot of money doing it, and I learned. But I hired like 52 of the top achievers in the world, and I actually either been on stage with them, I worked with them. I can phone them right now on the phone. A good portion of them, though, I'll be honest, like maybe 20 or 25 of them, they are deceased. So I learned from their material they already had online.
Mm-hmm. So how did you go so before you met up with the Think and Grow Rich individual, had you done any business to that point?
No, I was just trying to seek and destroy.
Seek and destroy. Nice. Great song. Uh, so when you meet up with this individual, he's the one that kind of kind of steadies you and gives you a path. Is that appropriate to say?
I was always told, if you're going to move forward, don't look too far ahead, because every time you go 5 feet, another path will open. There's
So
a
true.
possibility that fork might change somewhere else. It might be a fork in the road and that one's closed down, but this one will open. So don't be tunnel vision. If you're tunnel vision and you're looking just straight forward and say, oh, that's my goal. Fortunately, you have to learn the obstacles that go along the way. Sometimes those obstacles are negative and positive, but I've been taught and trained that when you have an obstacle, it's just another thing to help you try and get over a hump and make you, learn those emotions and get onto the other side. It's sweeter on the other side, guys. If you start learning things, it's sweeter on the other side.
I love that. So true. And so now you got some money coming in, and this gentleman is still helping you. At what point do you kind of switch up to more of a consultancy to where you're helping out businesses?
Well, when I owned the publishing company for 4 or 5 years and started doing well. I always tell people, like, my first book made me over $3 million. And
That's
it's true
incredible.
because it's not the actual book that made people got the conception of, okay, I put a book out there. Now I'm going to be a millionaire. That's not the way it works. The credibility that comes from the book, if you do it right, will lead you to either speaking, being on stages with the right people, being connected to the right people, putting yourself in position where you are able to be in the right position. It's called credibility. It builds you up. And that's why I tell people today, a person today, oh, no, I have to make some money on the book. It's only $2-3 I'll make off the book, but I need to sell 100,000 copies. Okay. I said, most authors only sell 250 books in a lifetime. They said, how many did you sell? I said, well, the most I've sold in a week, about 15,000 a week. They said, how'd you do that? And I said, because you rely on the people to help you out. If one of my best friends go out of their way and opens a store, hey, I don't care if I have my last $5. I'm going there to support him and what he's doing. I'm going to put that $5 and buy a T-shirt or something. I may not need it, but it's supporting him. And that's what everybody does, right? Everybody, some people, it might be my last $5. Like I said, it could be my whatever, but they do the same thing with me. I have books out there. Now, when you start doing a couple hundred books, like, hey, you're on your 200 book, they slow down with buying the books. They got enough on their shelf.
Yeah.
Some they never even read.
Well, I love the mentality that you're speaking to, and it's something we've discussed before, is that you don't rise to the top by pressing down and harming others, which is, I can't do it. I can't even talk to people that operate that way. But instead, you're stating we're all
together.
We do it together. It takes a village is another term. I love that. Rising tide raise all ships. Exactly.
You remember the phrase that people say, it's lonely at the top?
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now, it's not lonely at the top, because I'm bringing people with me. I didn't forget where I came from.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to bring people with me, and it's not going to ever be lonely at the top because I'm bringing everybody with me.
I love it.
Those have to do the work, though. You got to do your own work in order to rise. I've been featured when I got featured in Forbes, man. That was a rush. And now I got this huge award the other day, as you know.
Yeah. And we'll definitely get into that for sure. I wanted to definitely touch on that. But yeah. So what are some lessons for the audience that we can share, or that you can assist them with, that maybe they're kind of running into a wall right now, or maybe they feel like they picked the wrong thing?
That's very possible. I did the same thing before too.
Or they haven't adjusted from a 9 to 5 yet. That big jump.
Too. Now, here's the biggest thing that people need to understand. If you're not doing something you're comfortable with, or if you're in a 9 to 5 and you want to move into a business, or if you're in a business and just not liking what you do, you have the opportunity to change that. Here's how I suggest doing it. It's called mind mapping. Put yourself here, another person here, the person you admire, hypothetically say Tony Robbins. What do they do? How they dress? Where they hold their meetings? Who they serve? What kind of stuff do they do? Now, keep in mind, what do they wear? He wears black all the time, so you don't have to look at him, like in different ways. He does this for a reason. There's something in the brain that helps with it. And not only that, if you're a speaker, you'll realize that every 20 minutes, someone will put up their hand over their head. It's so it resets your brain, the frontal cortex, because what if you don't, everybody wants to fall asleep. So you see the hand go above, all of a sudden it resets it. All right. Learn these things, wonder what they're doing, but don't implement 100% of what they do. Only take a part of what they do and say, okay, what makes me different from them, but the same concept.
Model and not copying, essentially.
Yeah, you don't want to copy the person. I mean, you don't want to actually be Tony Robbins. In a way, yeah, but I mean, come on. But I mean, straightforward. I mean, I got called on stage with him once.
Really?
I spoke on stage with him once. I was in my PJs. I was just getting out of the hospital. I was sick. And next thing you know, I said, okay, there's a VIP, couple $100. I said, why not just do it? Anyways, I got online like this. All of a sudden, his team comes on and says, Robert, you just won. You just won a chance to get on with Tony. I said, no, there's a bunch of malarkey. You're not going to do it. Next thing you know, boom, there he is there talking to me.
Literally larger than life. He's a big dude.
Well, I've been on stage with, you name it. Like Jack Canfield, Mark Victor Hansen, Crystal, hip hop preacher. I train as I speak right now for the last 3 years, Les Brown's daughter.
That's incredible.
Dr. Joe Vitale's ex-wife. I train a bunch of people.
I had the honor of speaking at Christopher Voss's event with Mark Victor Hansen. What an incredible individual. Man, that guy is intense.
Yeah, you gotta love it.
Such a valuable, just so much value to give. That guy is amazing. So we have a question from the audience that says, how do you turn credibility into visibility?
By not bragging. Let them see it. Hey, I got people right now that are, when you start earning the respect of others, you start getting a lot of credibility. And that's visibility, right? So people get to see what you're doing through other people. So other people, let them do the bragging. So right now, I'm on this show. I mean, I don't have to sit there and say, okay, I did this, I did that, because you're bringing out the questions to ask me, how did I get over that? How did I do this? How did I do that? It's like when people introduce you, they're introducing you with their words. It might be my bio, but they're the ones giving you that credibility. So when Mark Victor Hansen or E.T. or anybody else, I mean, sits there and says, oh, Robert J. Moore did this, Robert J. Moore did that, they're telling their story. Ted McGrath, not long ago, it was sitting there talking about me being in Forbes. Right on the live. And here's one of the guys, the top people in the world, sitting there saying, oh, Robert J. Moore, I just read his article in Forbes. I'm thinking, well, isn't that kind of nice? Whew.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's a cool cat right there. You know what I mean? When you earn the respect of others by not bragging, by showing them that you're a valuable person to invest in, you start changing people's lives, you're going to be visible.
I like that. And Molly says, NLP, powerful shit. Yeah, absolutely. It is a very powerful stuff. Yes. So my next question for you is, I know what got you into it, but what keeps you doing it?
What keeps me going?
Yeah, what keeps you going?
You know what?
You got a beautiful family now. You have an amazing son.
Yeah,
and all these things. What keeps you rocking?
Here's the thing. It's not the money. I'll tell you right now. A lot of people think, oh yeah, the money will control them. You're going to stay broke if you focus on the money. I'm telling you right now. You will stay bloody well broke if you're focused on the money. Focus on your passion. Mm-hmm. To me, I don't feel like I work. I just come out to the shed, do my thing, and enjoy my day. And I get paid for doing it. I retired my father before he died. I retired my wife for the last 6 years. She hasn't worked. She doesn't have to. I pay all the mortgage. I pay all the bills. I get all the kids here. I pay them. I pay all the school trips. I do everything. Why? Because I'm able to today. And there's nothing illegal about it. You know, a lot of times I sit there. My wife doesn't even have a clue what I do for a living. She has no clue. She has no clue. Her mother works for me. Figure that out. Her mother works for me.
This
But
is interesting because I have experienced this firsthand. When people say, "What do you do?" And I have always had such a hard time. I just go, "Oh, marketing for entrepreneurs online." I
yeah,
just keep it real short and sweet. I don't get into the detail. I don't get into the shows. I don't get into VSLs. I don't get into the sales. I don't get into
I've,
any of
I've,
that. I
I
just cover it as short as possible so we can move on to something else.
sometimes I play around with them.
So, what are some of the things that you have told family members about what you do?
My wife would sit there and say, "What do you do?" I said, "I'm a pimp." I said earlier before. I mean, I play around with the people. I mean, I had a buddy of mine that I was brought up. I've known him like I'm 51, so probably known him 47 years. He goes, "What do you really do now?" He says, "I see you all over the place. You see you speaking here, speaking there. What do you talk on?" I said, "I talk on how people stay out of my shit." He says, "That'll never change," he says. And I said, "No, I'm just joking." I said, "I teach people how to get out of their own shit."
I
You know what I mean? I teach people how to forgive themselves, because if you don't forgive yourself for something you've done, God or nobody else, how are you going to forgive? How are they going to forgive you? You have to forgive yourself, because listen, a resentment, it's like pissing down your own leg. You're the only one that feels it.
Nice. And so for you guys in the audience, I know all of you have had to have this question asked to you by family members, friends, loved ones, whatever it may be. What did you tell them? Say in the comments. Let me know what you guys say yourself.
I could just
Because
imagine.
me, I just keep it short and sweet now because I don't want to linger there. Let's just move on. Because the deeper I get into it, the more questions, and then you get like the not necessarily judgment, but you get the family that's like, maybe you should look for a full-time job. And I'm like, I'm fine. I promise you, everything's going to be absolutely fine. I'm
Now you got to
helping.
remember when you say that word "fine." You say that word
Everyone's
"fine."
good.
Careful when you
What's
say
that?
that word "fine" around me. That means fucked up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional.
Oh yeah.
I was a counselor for years, man. Think about it. But you know what? Hey,
Everything's good.
I just tell people today, straight forward. I just help other entrepreneurs, empower them. Good enough.
That works. That works.
I think I got enough track record that you can't miss me if you search me.
Right. So that leads to my next question is let's let everybody know about some of the awards that have come your way through this journey. And then most recently, even this week, you just got another award. So if you could let people know about what just happened.
Well, there's about 1,500 articles that went out there in one shot that they put out there because I've been nominated and actually won. I don't even know who nominated me, I'll be honest with you. I know so many people out there, and they never tell you who did it. But I'll be honest with you, it's Globalization Award. I mean, like, how can you go any better than that? You know, like here. I mean, here's the actual.
Throw it up, man. Throw it up there. There we go.
It's hard to see with the light.
Yeah,
they have the award coming. I'm going to do a big one. It says winner, the Global Recognition Award 2023. When I got that, I was in bed and I flew out of bed. I did the weirdest, kind of stupidest dance I ever known the man. I still got a good feeling out of it. And then, I mean, it was okay. Well, now that we do move on to something bigger, I mean, as if that's not big enough, I got the Guinness World Record, as you said, featured in Forbes.
Yeah.
Almost every magazine out there I've been featured in. You know, I mean, like, you can't miss me if you Google me. And I don't say that as bragging rights. I say that because if you want to learn more about a person, right? I mean, you have to Google someone. So, I mean, Magnetic Entrepreneur, like I said, that was put together by my dad. I was seeing all over the place. I was getting gas. Everybody wanted to talk to me. We're sitting at the fireplace. The guy comes up. His buddy says, "Hey, listen, what do you do for a living?" My dad says, "He's a magnet, man. Every time he goes somewhere, everybody wants to talk to him." So then the guy says, "Oh, you're an entrepreneur, magnetic entrepreneur." And I said, "Boom, I'll take it."
Done. Sold.
Yeah. And it had a ring to it. And all of a sudden, when I did that, went global. It went global, like almost instantly.
I love that. So for you, what's next?
You know what?
You're telling me you got your last book coming out, number 201. You got this global award. You've had tons of awards. You've appeared in all these magazines. You've spoken on many, many, many stages. You're an incredibly sought after individual. What's next?
Just keep going. Just keep going. I don't want to retire. I don't want to retire. I want to help as many people as I can. If I can help 2-3 million, I'll be happy. You know what I mean? I just want to leave a nice legacy for my family and a good name for the family, because it obviously doesn't have the greatest name when you tell people your past. And a lot of people, I'll be honest with you, a lot of people are still negative towards me because of the way my past was. I can't work with a con. I said, I'm an ex-con. And I said, better yet, I'll be honest with you, you're better off to work with someone like me that's an ex-con, because I won't pull no punches. I'll tell you straight. Look, I care more about anybody's business than their emotions. If I have to tell you, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to be straight shoot, man. I don't give a shit. I'll deal with your emotions later. That's what I was a counselor for 15 years. I'll deal with that later, but I'll guarantee you your business will be running strong.
That's awesome, man. So now I like to ask this question near the end. What's the question I didn't ask that I should have?
What's a question you didn't ask that you should have? Well, there's a lot of those. Yeah. How did I get a pardon? How did I get released from, all the stuff? Now, I'm going to be honest with you. It was a pardon when I started. Honestly, it was a pardon when I started. How do I go across the states and everything now? I'm not going to say it was easy. But what I did do is I applied, and then I had to apply, and then I had to apply. Finally, I had to break down and get some help to do it because I was struggling to get it. So I hired some Howard Johnson, I think it was Howard Johnson. I hired. They have a program that they work with people that get their pardons. So I went there, and then they sent it back about 10 times. Now I was working 2 hours north of here at the time when I had to drive back and forth to sign those papers and change one dot sometimes. So I had to waste all that gas going back and forth. But here's the thing. It took me 11 years to actually get it. And I sat in front of a guy. We were going to AA a lot of times. And I was like best friends with him. I never knew his possession. Never knew what he did for a living at all. Never knew. And finally, I asked him, I said, what do you do for a living? I had my coffee in my hand at the time. And he says, I'm a police officer. I almost choked. Oh, my God, I almost choked. He goes, what's the matter? And he starts laughing. He goes, how come you've never asked me that before? I said, I think I've lost my touch. He goes, what do you mean? I said, I didn't know.
Your radar didn't go off?
he already knows my record because he ran me through many times already. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
That's the day he said, here's what we're going to do to get your pardon. I said, well, how do you know about that? He goes, well, I told you I'm a cop. And I said, I don't like cops. But then that's the day he made me realize that they're just humans. You know what I mean? Like, it separated the metabolism in my brain and made me think, okay, well, they're just humans. They were only doing a job when I got arrested for breaking someone's leg or breaking their jaw or stealing something or doing an armed robbery. It wasn't their fault. I blame them. I actually blame them at the time. I don't know why. It wasn't my fault. It was just the weirdest thing. When I look at it back now, it's like, boy, was I wild.
That's interesting too, is I think that's another thing that can be prevalent when we fail as entrepreneurs early on, is that it's not our fault. It's the program's fault. It's the mentor's fault. It's the software's fault or whatever it may be.
I get that a lot still to this day when certain people owe me money and they can't afford to pay me. Instead of coming up to me and sitting there saying, listen, I really can't afford it at the moment. Is it possible I could pay next week or something? They'll start taking their lashing out on me. Mm-hmm. They'll start lashing out on me. They'll start, oh, it's your fault. How's it my fault? You know what I mean? Like, then they'll start saying, oh, you did this, you did that, you did this. I don't agree with that. So they want to argue with you. So you'll just say, go away. And then you don't have to pay them. Yeah, I don't understand it, man, but it's just the way it is.
Alex Hormozi actually recently mentioned this in a short form piece of content that he put out that I noticed. I really liked it. He said that even if it's not your fault, it is your fault. Mm-hmm. And he said you need to treat it all like it is, because then you give the power to yourself to change it.
I usually tell people when they start blaming me, I say, listen, I'm sorry you're having a bad day. I think we'll talk tomorrow.
Yeah. Sometimes
when people ask me for money, there's a guy not long from here. He asked me to borrow like $30, $40. I knew I'd never see him again because he's the type of person that wants to hide when he doesn't want to pay. So, I mean, the best way to get rid of a person, if you know it, just give him the $40. See you later.
Yeah.
I got you off my back. We'll never see you again.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you guys watching out there that may be putting excuses or roadblocks in the way of you and your success, saying that, oh, I'm going to play the blame game, which we've all done it. We've all done it.
Yeah.
But it literally gets you nowhere. It gets you nowhere. And worst off yet is that you're giving power to someone else to affect your own life. By blaming someone else, you're giving them power over you. So by saying, I take responsibility for this result or lack thereof, you have the power to then make changes to make it better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's as crazy as ever, man, when you sit there and accept the blame on yourself. Like I said, it's part of resentment. You're resenting yourself or you're resenting others because of it. Now, the thing is, when I was going through that anger stage and I was drinking and drugging, I didn't realize till I got clean and sober that I couldn't actually live in society without having a shot of whiskey or something. And it was my crutch, right? When I started actually hanging around people that didn't do it and started getting out of my mind that I need to drink in order to do things, that's when I started volunteering. And I started helping people. But it was really weird because when I did that, I got someone else's life in my hands.
Right.
It's like, shit, what do I do, man? I got you're like, and I'm not an expert at the time. You know what I mean? It's like, what do I do? Your life is in my hands right now. You're asking me these questions that if I say the wrong thing, what could happen?
It could really affect your life. Their life. Yeah.
It could be detrimental, right? I mean, they could die.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to be very careful. If you don't really know what you're talking about, guide them to someone else that does. I will say that. Right. I mean, I got three brothers of mine that end up dead. It's not because they didn't lack of questions. It's because they were afraid that they would drag me down by asking the question.
Well said. So for those people out there that are watching in the audience, let me know if you guys have any questions for Robert. So for final kind of wrap up here, Robert, is there any main takeaways that our audience can use in their lives and their business, or both, that you think that younger Robert could have used well at that point?
I'm going to tell you two things. One is I lived 10 years in advance. And the reason for that is because I admire myself 10 years down the road. And I know what I'm like 10 years down the road. I know how I'm acting. I'm addressing what my bank account looks like, where am I living. And I follow that. Now, you'll never catch up to that 10-year thing, but you're always following that. And you're trying to get yourself going because that's where you want to be. That's your dream. It's like a vision board, right? So you put yourself 10 years in advance and say, okay, how do I work towards that now? You write it down, look at it. I mean, if you look at Napoleon Hill, chapter 2, it talks about put a date on things.
Yeah. Right.
Put a date on things. And now, if you want $1 million, how are you going to make that $1 million? What are you going to give up to earn it?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, that's serious. So the thing is, if you're sitting there struggling and you want to move ahead, get off the bloody pity pot for one. All right, straight goods. Get off the pity pot and start figuring out how you can empower somebody else. It's going to hurt. It's going to sting. Why? Because it's not about you. So get off the pity pot, go help someone else out and empower them. And you know what? Go do something nice for somebody and don't tell a soul about it and see how that feels. That feels good, man, at the end. Knowing you help the person and they don't even know you helped them or anybody else knows that, but you do. Now, that's a beautiful thing. And I want to tell you one other thing. Here's the very, very last thing I want to say about any of it. If I put your head underwater, what are you going to say? You're obviously going to be wishing you had some air, right? You can't breathe. So if you want your dreams to come true, as bad as you want that friggin' air, put your thoughts from here to your heart and make it happen. Because when you have it in your heart, you put the emotion behind it and you'll work harder to get it. Don't let those obstacles get in your way, man. Fight them. You know where you want to be. You know the end result. Go for it.
That is so fantastic. Truly, man. I want to thank you so much for joining us. It has been an absolute honor to have you here. I got all the love in the world for you, man. And I am so happy to know more about you and what has shaped you as a person and your story. And it fills out all this richness of you that I've known from before. And I really am so, again, honored to have you on the show. And I'm excited to see what comes next.
Well, I'll tell you what's coming next. In the next couple of weeks, I'm sitting down. We're doing an autobiography video, and
Nice.
and that's actually with one of the people you know quite well, Lefty.
Mhm. Our own Leftetis.
Yeah, he was actually here not long ago. We had some steak and some pork chops, and he was at my house and saw the office. He was, wow, this is what I need. He says,
Right.
and no, he's gonna do that, and he's gonna be speaking at my event coming up, and he's in the book, and then I have the movie coming out after that. It's supposed to be coming out. We're just waiting for a couple more people to sign the paperwork, and we have.
Which is your story.
Yeah,
it's about your story.
If you read the book Resilience, based on true story of Robert J. Moore, that is my book. That's the one they're doing the movie out of, and it's going big, that book right now. I'm trying to get it picked up by a huge publisher so I could really move it. I might be a publisher, but I mean, I want to get it bigger than me.
Distribution, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot further. I mean, I'm friends with everybody on Ingram, and I know the people that run it, I know the people that own it, and it's pretty cool that they can get it out there, but it's not going to push it big enough until there's just like Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Yeah.
I've been asked to do a chapter in there.
Nice.
Yeah.
A fantastic book series, by the way. Absolutely fantastic. And if you guys haven't read the book Resilience, please go check it out. You can get it on Amazon, by the way. I don't remember if there was an audio book for that. Is there an audio version?
There's actually an audio book. Yeah. I'll post it underneath this video.
Please do. Please do.
Yeah.
It is amazing story, truly.
Yeah, it's got a good. The guy that does it has a really amazing voice on it too.
Yeah, you want to talk about going from the dirt to the clouds? Like, this is your story. You want to talk about like going from rough situation, rough background, already predetermined outcome based upon choices and decisions, trauma, and then turning it completely around and then changing people's lives for the better. This is your book. I highly, highly recommend you guys check it out.
I'll look at it this way. God gave me the opportunity to hang myself or make something of my life. And I finally put my heart into him and said, okay, take me.
Amazing.
What more can I do?
There's nothing more you can do. But I appreciate you so very much, my friend. And we will hopefully have you back on the show when you release your book. I would love to hear about, all of that as that goes out, and maybe talk about some of your strategy behind that. Because I know that people are very much interested in putting out books for authority, maybe for lead gen or whatever it may be, but it's definitely a hot topic. So I would love to have you back if you're open to it, to talk about kind of your thought process behind that.
Mm-hmm. I was taught by Kyle Wilson, Jim Rohn's ex-business partner.
You definitely go big.
That's it. That's who I was actually taught with that one. Yeah, I do go big. Yeah. But you know what? People always say to me, like, how do you keep humble all the time? I'll tell you how I keep humble. It's because I got my own shit to deal with in my own backyard. Mm-hmm. I don't have to go digging for other stuff. I mean, I don't have to sit there and say, oh, look at me, look at me, look at me. If you want to see me, you're going to see me. It's just going to pop up. I don't do things inside the box. I do it outside the box. So if you're a business trying to compete with me, you can't do it because I'm outside the box.
You have your story. You're uniquely you.
When you don't see me doing something on Facebook for a month or two, you know I'm up to something.
Right? Yeah, he's in the lab. All right. Well, I truly appreciate you again. Audience, I appreciate you guys so much. I know that you can spend your time anywhere, and we appreciate that you spend it here with us tonight on Friday Night Live. And we will see you on the next one. Bye, you guys. Really appreciate you.
Loading. Welcome to the best show on Friday nights.